in a while I get asked, how do I do a Homeschool in the Woods history study? Now, our history studies have a lot of components to them. They're hands-on, they're full of projects and activities, but how's it organized, or what do I do with it? Well, today I'm going to take you step by step through how to do a time traveler. Now, time travelers are our American history studies, but we also have world history studies. Those are project passports, and I'll include a link below to take you to the tutorial for that. They both include a Lapbook among its many projects, but we also have some studies that are basically just Lapbooks. One is a lap pack, and that's going to be on a topic. It's going to include step-by-step how to do the Lapbook for that, as well as text and sometimes some audio as well. The activity packs are a Lapbook too, but instead of providing text, they're meant to accompany another curriculum or text, or to just launch research of your own. Now, history studies are flexible, so they contain a lot of projects. You don't have to do them all. We really encourage you to pick and choose what you want to do, what suits your family. Time travelers include 25 lessons that can be spread across generally 5 to 10 weeks, although we know of some that have done them faster or those that have chosen to stretch one out for half a year. It's really up to you and the number of projects that you choose to do and the age of your children. They each have several project topics in them as well. All of them include a timeline, a newspaper, penmanship pages, a Lapbook like I mentioned before, mapping, fact file cards, which are vocabulary cards. They can be used with terminology as well, and games and things like that. Recipes, notebooking activities, three-dimensional projects, often including authentic type projects to the era. They include a file folder game, which is a great way to cover all your lessons that you've learned and just really kind of review the material. And finally, they end with a celebration of some sort. So now with all that said, let's go ahead and get started. The first thing you're going to want to do is open the file that's on your desktop. Now it says HTTA, that stands for History Through the Ages, and then World War II is an easy one. But if you have like New World Explorers, it's going to say NWE or Colonial Life CL. Just double click on that. You're going to ignore the folders, just go right to the start.htm and double click on that. And it will start up the menu in your browser. So there's a couple paragraphs at the beginning, and what we want to do is go below there and read these important documents, which are, especially if it's your first time using a time traveler, you're going to want to take a look at these. Of course, we have acknowledgments and usage, introduction. Now, this is basically just an overview of what the study includes. The tips to consider before starting. This is a good one because it's going to share some tips to help in crafting the projects and general items that are good to have on hand. You know, they're listed here, things like colored in, paper, cardstock, double-sided sticky tape, and glue sticks, color pencils, things like that. Now, as you continue, there's some more tips in there as well, and then there's a key of code for the pages. These codes are going to help you when it comes to organizing pages where you have options, teacher keys, masters. In this case, text lessons are numbered according to the number lesson that they have, and if they have more than one page. So if it's one page, it's just going to say, if lesson 3 only had one page, it would just say 3. But instead, it has 2 pages, so it says 3A, 3B. The project pages are going to have a P after it, so it's 3P, A, and B, and C, and so on as well if you've got multiple pages. Masters have an M at the beginning for master. The next number is the lesson it's in, and the next number is the master for that lesson. So master, lesson 6, master number 3. Teacher K, lesson 1, first master, and so on. And when you see these, this is going to be, there's some projects that have variations. For example, the penmanship pages, and I'll be showing you this later, where it would mean master, lesson 5, or these are actually, sorry, fact file cards. And but 9A, 9B, that's going to be, do you want that with an answer on the front? Do you want the answer on the back? Things like that. There's a few ways of seeing them, using them. And you'll get the hang of that, what that means. It's really not difficult. As I was mentioning, the penmanship pages also have things like that because there's different levels your children could be at. They could be wanting to use dotted lines or ruled lines or just the quotes themselves. And I'll point that out when we get there. Okay, so the next thing would be teacher helps. And here we have the lesson planner. Now what that is it's basically a guide at a glance. It's a quick overview of the topics. Let me turn it around those here. Here we turn, there we go, so I can get a better view of it. It's going to have the lessons and the projects, both new ones and continuing ones that you're going to be adding to periodically. It just shows you in one page what each one contains, what each lesson is going to contain. Oh, wait a second. Let me still go back. Oops. Sorry about that. Then we have additional resources. That's only why I did want to go here. Okay. All right. Yes, this was actually born out of the requests for additional reading suggestions. The time travelers have plenty of text to accompany each lesson, but we understand that sometimes you might want to assign additional reading, such as like historical fiction books or just more on a particular topic that your child might have an interest in. There's also suggested in here things like audio and video and music, just ways to kind of add some interest to your studies. And music can always be a fun way to set the atmosphere as well. So, all right. 3-ring binder covers are located here. This is nice because you can either, as a teacher, you can use them, and obviously for your student, you're going to want to use them so they can put in their name. There's ones that already come with color, and then for the ones that want to really color them in and make them their own, they come in black and white as well. So, and then there's even a spine available depending on the width of the binder that you're using. Okay, then finally down here you see we have teacher keys. Now teacher keys are going to be located right with the masters in each lesson, but if you need a teacher key and you cannot remember what lesson it was from that you need it for, they are just collected here in one spot. Just makes it a little bit more helpful that way. Okay, now on the main menu, the lessons are grouped 5 at a time. And right on the menu are keywords to let you know what the topics of those lessons are going to be. This is just right on the main menu that when you first open it up. But before we dive into the lessons themselves, let's scroll to the bottom of the main menu. You're going to see other resources here. And one is, okay, all master pages. Now this is the go-to if you need to do a reprint, something didn't print properly or it got spilled on or something, or you need extras of it and you just can't remember what lesson it's in. You can come to the master gallery of all the lessons, and it'll be located here. So just save some time sometimes. The next one is the gallery of project photos, and this is nice because you get to see what these projects are going to look like when they're completed. It just kind of gives you that additional, visual aid. But in the meantime, don't feel like you have to follow exactly. For example, if your child wants to use other colored stock for these language bingo cards, that's totally fine. And let them get creative too. But if you need a visual to help you, you can usually find the photos here. Now also here are Lapbook instructions at the very end, 24th out of 25 lessons. On lesson 24, you're going to be putting the Lapbook together, and it takes you step by step in how to fold the Lapbook and put the cover on and fill it up, put the pages in, where to place everything. And I'll go over that more when we get towards the end. All right, now the first lesson or two is usually going to be a bit busier than the others. There's a handful of projects generally in the first few lessons, and I'm going to go ahead and click to there now, these lessons, we have you print them entirely and prepare them first. We do this as these projects will be added to at many lessons, and all you have to do is pull it out and it's ready to go. So by preparing the basic components for a handful of these projects, it's going to save you loads of time in the future. Now, examples of this are the notebook, timeline, and newspaper located in lesson 1 and lesson 2, and I'll get there. You're going to be placing timeline figures throughout many of the lessons, as well as adding articles and advertisements. So, and penmanship is used in every lesson, so you can choose to print those off all at once or as you go. But here you have your first thing is, as you can see, like I said, they're grouped in 5 lessons at a time. Your text pages are going to be here, and you can either print them off and put them in your binder, or you can just read them off of the screen. And your project pages are here. Now, I will mention too, though, that there's often projects that are going to refer back to the text that you've read, so you may want to have the text handy when your child needs it, or you can print it off as needed at that time too. The project pages are where you're going to be going, though, for all projects in that lesson. They include directions for new projects as well as instructions for what you're going to be adding to continuously, and I'll show you how that works here. Like I mentioned before, the penmanship is always going to have one to do each day if you would like to include that. Here's the caveat, though, in this whole thing. There's a lot of projects here. Do not feel that you need to do them all, please. This is one of those things where it's, as you learn, it's a flexible study. You know your child better than anybody, and you're really here to expose them to new things in history, new ideas, new people and events, and all kinds of stuff. And you really want them to develop a love of learning it. So don't burn them out. But like I said, maybe you want to keep the quotes and things, and then you can just print the actual text description over here, or text of it over here. But if you like this type of cursive, there is the lined version, or if you have your own cursive program you're using, there is a list of the quotes and 2 different forms of lines, dashed lines and ruled lines. Okay. Now, of course, also when it comes to preparation, age, maturity, and each child's ability to focus is pretty much going to play a part in how much authority you give them over each project. So you know your child, and you may want to gauge how much you'll give them to prepare according to how easy it is for your child to handle. You may just find that with some of the projects, like the notebook timeline, that they're just plain easier for you to put together ahead of time. That way the child can just dive in when you're ready to begin the project. Now, most projects start with a supplies list, mainly if there's additional items that are needed to complete them in addition to the printed master. Printable masters assigned to that lesson are going to be linked within the lesson itself. Now, the masters, as we've seen, they're labeled with the letter and the 2 numbers, or the M or the TK, which in this case, when it comes to the notebook timeline, you will have teacher keys to show you placement on things. The supplies generally start with the masters that you're going to need to print, and it tells you if you're going to need to print on paper or cardstock, and the color of it, and then additional things. And sometimes you're going to need to print on the back side of the paper. You just need to know how your printer works for direction of the paper. We've had at least 5 printers, and I don't always know which direction to go with them either. So I've had to run a test print to remind myself before I get going. Next will be materials you need, or at least suggestions of them, such as here we've got clear packing tape and scissors. Be sure to read thoroughly through the project directions before you tackle them so you can determine if you want to use optional supplies or not. All right, I also do want to point out at this time that the only time traveler that does not have a supplies list at the top is the New World Explorers. That was the first one that we did over 15 years ago. And we've had a lot of requests along the way, and I've had to plow on, like with the studies. People wanted other studies done, and we never really went back to organize that one. So, but it's been fine. No one's ever said anything, and it's still organized very well. It's just a little different. It'll look a little different. Now, the notebook project is the second project that we're doing here, and as you can see, it's showing you how to make an accordion fold timeline, and this one's going to basically be a piece that gets 3-hole punched, put into your binder, and then the other pieces fold up behind it. Now you're going to be creating the timeline figures as well here, and you're going to be cutting out the ones that they refer to, coloring them in and sticking them on, and then taking your remaining pages of figures and just sticking them away until you're ready to use them. Now, also, a thing about the teacher key, too, is that it's great to show kids where they can add in additional information if they want. So if they just want to see what it looks like ahead of time. You'll see that this lesson also contains a Lapbook project. Now, once you've completed this project, you're going to be setting it aside with future Lapbook projects to assemble into one file folder. If you don't know what a Lapbook is, I'll be showing you later in this tutorial. So let's take a look at how this looks on the menu. Get to that. So here's the master itself. Solid lines mean cut and dashed lines mean to fold. So now it tells you on there to print this off either in white or in two ways, on white and on a colored paper. And what this does is sometimes we'll throw these options in there because what that will do is give you a little bit more color in what you're doing through the colored paper. Here's an example of what it would look like if it was white on a colored paper stock. You can do white on white. It's totally fine. You know, it's just really up to you and gives you some options. Now remember, you know, most of this work in lesson 1 is prep work. So that's why it's going to be a little bit longer than some of the other ones that you're doing. And again, in lesson 2 as well. But I'll show you that in just a second. Okay, on to lesson 2. So here again is your text. I'm gonna right here. And, you know, here are the project pages here. Now, if you notice at the top, it instructs that you're going to be completing the penmanship for Masters 1, M1, 2. In other words, first lesson, you know, but you're going to be using Master 2. You're going to be adding timeline figures. So you're going to pull those out. And this is where we begin the newspaper. Now, once again, this is put together. Once this is put together, you're going to find that it's ready to go for your child to add brief articles and creative advertisements. I get a lot of emails from families sharing how much they love this fun way to record what they've learned about. And it's really a great way to introduce creative writing to your child. Okay. And here we have a notebook project that you're going to be adding to the binder when it's completed. So now in lesson 3, you can see that we continue with the penmanship. Let me see. We're going to be adding to the notebook timeline. You're going to be adding a couple of articles and an advertisement to the newspaper. And then we've got some new projects. In this case, you have a map, the major events of the European theater, and that's going to go into your notebook. So you can get a feel for how you're adding continually and introducing new projects to do. Lesson 4 follows suit as well. And now lesson 5, however, is different. So we're going to get down here, and these are called project days. At the end of every group of 5 lessons, it's going to be a project day. Now, this is from the lessons text page. I'm going to just read it to you. Project days are designed to allow ample time for creating the projects suggested in the lessons. There may not always be time in the day for your child to accomplish all the ideas. This provides a slush day, so to speak, to not only complete unfinished projects, but also to catch up with the projects that were passed over previously. This also provides a great opportunity for review. When your children choose an activity from a previous lesson, they're revisiting the topic, helping cement the ideas that they learned. You may want to take advantage of this occasion to encourage project choices in areas which they need extra practice. All right, so that's basically it in a nutshell. It also contains a new project, which is going to be happening every 5 lessons, again, during the project days, called fact file cards. Let me see. I'm sure I've probably got them in here. Here we go. So a lot of times you're going to be reviewing ones that you've done before or that you've had assigned before. So if you did skip over them or want to push them out and do it another time, you've got them listed at the top. The fact file cards, these are the vocabulary cards. These are going to be, you can use them for games. You can use them with the answers printed on. There's choices again here. Some of them are sayings, and there's a variety of kinds here. So, but they're a great way to bring in the vocabulary in a fun way. Now from here on out, project days will not need text to read, but instead will include a lesson page for your own notes. Should you wish to jot down any information like projects that you need to finish or additional resources you've used, etc. like that. Okay. Now, I want to share with you about some of the 3-dimensional and authentic crafts that we do and include in these. I'm going to jump to lesson 8. Okay, let me go to the project page here. All right, like you've seen so far, we call out the things you're going to be doing, the penmanship, adding to the notebook timeline, continuing the newspaper. Now here's a new one. It's a map that you're going to be creating a different map. This is one in the Pacific Theater. I know we did the European Theater before, so in one of the other ones, but this is continuing with another part of the world. Then we have soldiers of the U.S. and different uniforms. We're focusing on that. Let me see. You're in the Army now. Okay, that's, and the soldier's basic field manual. I've got a couple different projects here. This field manual is really cool because it's based off of a real one from World War II. All we did is we had to do a few alterations to make it more printable, but we often try to include something that can be used in dress up. In this case, it's the garrison cap. We've got a variety of different things, whether they're accessories or actual parts of a uniform or whatever. The sewing projects we include are totally obviously going to depend on your child's age and skills and interests, but I will tell you, if I can sew it, it has to be simple because sewing is definitely not a gift of mine. So again, you're choosing the projects that you wish to do according to the time that you have allowed for the subject and the interest and age of your child. It's also a great opportunity if you have a number of kids to have them work together. They can help each other out, or one of your older children can kind of take the lead and younger ones can tend to learn alongside. Okay, so this is going to just continue on, and you'll notice that you're going to now be adding to some existing projects and having options for new ones, as you've seen all the way along now. Once you get towards the end, though, you're going to encounter a file folder game. And I believe that's in lesson 19, so let's jump there. Okay, almost there. Here we go. All right, in this case, it's World War II Fight for Freedom. We like to include games with a lot of question cards pulled from the information throughout the study. It really beats taking tests, first of all. The child gets to play while they're continuing, not just to see what new information they can learn, but what information stuck, and really begin to cement the information into bite-sized pieces. Now, the thing to know about a game with question cards is that the child is most likely not going to remember all the detailed information, at least not right away. We recommend using a small portion of cards and using them over and over until the information sticks. You can always add cards as they're ready to receive new information, or if your child's younger, choose the cards that have the easier information. It's not the intention to frustrate a child for not remembering details. It's more of a remedial way to lay down some of the things that they've learned, in a concrete way. It's really meant to be fun. And I'll show you how this looks at the end of the video as well. So let's go ahead and jump over to lesson 24 now, because here is where I'm going to go up to the top and go to 24. This is where we're going to be looking at putting the Lapbook together. So you have your project pages here, and it's going to take you step by step. And if you recall, on the main menu page, you can go to the very bottom, and there's also, this is all called out and with bigger pictures stuff. You also get to see what it looks like when it's done. On the main menu, or on the menu itself, under lesson 24, the master you're going to have at that point is your Lapbook cover page. That'll get colored in. All right, so finally, we have reached the end of the study, and it's time to celebrate. Now, this is an optional thing to do, but it's always fun to finish a study with a bang and, provide a way to share what you've made and learned with other kids. I mean, the kids they've done so much in this whole study that it's fun when they can kind of show off their projects and things, even to grandma and grandpa or to neighbors or friends or whatever. Now, rather than text in this one, this page gives you a place to plan out your celebration. The project pages, they provide not just ideas. I mean, you've got a lot of stuff here. Invitations, a list of foods to choose from, and these were taken from the recipes that were provided on the project days. So, and sometimes we include additional ones like we did here. You're going to have suggestions for decor and games and more and all kinds of stuff. So if you want to show movies or play music, we often have suggestions for that too. Okay, so that's it. Let's take a look at some actual projects that you're going to be doing. Okay, now I'd like to show you some of the projects that you're going to be making with these studies. The first thing I want to show you is the student's notebook. Now, if you can get a notebook that has pockets in it, this is really helpful because this can also house some of your other projects like the newspaper or even the file folder game can often fit in here. Here's an example of the timeline, the accordion fold timeline. And as you can see, it unfolds and it keeps on going actually quite a bit here. So that they'll be putting in here. Here's an example of the penmanship page. What I basically have here is just the printed off version. But again, like you saw, they've got options for doing the printing. By the way, these materials I'm going to be showing you, we have brought to conventions over the years, and they have been well loved by many. So we've put reinforcers, you're going to see them on here throughout, and please ignore any bent corners and marked pages and stuff like that. But this is something to think about. If your children are very active with what they do, you may want to use reinforcers on the holes. So, okay, here's an example of the maps that I had showed you there, and overlays that you'll use to just make them a little bit more informative and fun. Here's an example of one of the projects that would be in here are pin back buttons from the time period when you're talking one of the propaganda type projects that we did. Here's some on uniforms of U.S. soldiers, Axis, Allied soldiers. We have several on that. Here's an example of a project in here that utilizes a pocket. This happens to be on someone that we personally knew, the family, on a hero in that family during the time. And there's different information in here on that person. There's another example of a pocket one where there's going to be women that were known throughout the war that had done important things. And there's information on there. The children can add information to the back and stuff as well. Okay. There's projects on metals, and there's projects that move. And having them interactive is just a way to kind of make it a little bit more fun. Now, this is an example of something that we really discovered in our research on the topic of World War II. We never heard of them before. And they're called souvenir pillowcases. Now, when the soldiers were, across the seas and people were waiting anxiously back home to hear from them, they would often send souvenirs to their family members. And souvenir pillowcases were one of those types of things. I actually have an option. This is a notebook option. And the reason I really wanted to point this out is because sometimes we will do this. We'll have notebook options, and then we have other options that are a little bit more authentic. We have a pattern in there. This is what it would have looked like. This is basically a pillowcase that has been sent home, and they'll have either sayings on them or mottos or the insignia of the base or camp that the soldier was stationed in. So we have a three-dimensional way to do it, and then we also have the notebook way. So that's going to happen a couple times throughout the studies. In fact, when I get to the three-dimensional items over here, I'll be pointing another one of those out. Now, another option is creative writing. Of course, as I've mentioned, we have the newspaper. In this case, it is Frontline News, but everyone's got their own theme and title and stuff like that. But this is a great opportunity for just short clips of writing. It's not daunting to a child, but in fun ways to put in advertisements as well. The newspaper, another option. A lot of the studies come with a journal of some sort. This is actually from our Industrial Revolution through Great Depression. They'll often come with a different kind of cover, whether it's faux leather, chamois, different things like that. In this case, we just have like a canvas or drill cloth, and they're going to have opportunities to write in them and pretend that they're maybe a soldier or a nurse or someone on the home front during that time that's working hard at home. Here's some of them come with. In this case, this one came with photos that we include because it's World War I for this one. We actually have photos of the very first tanks at that time, and actually postcards too that were used during that time period. Now for World War II, we have a very cool project. This is a service record book, and this is actually based off of the authentic one that we found. And what this was something that was provided to the soldiers that they could actually record their thoughts and their experiences in. For example, medals, citations, decorations that they received, battles and campaigns that they participated in. Here we have friends that they met while they were in the service, and actually we include authentic photos in here as well that give the children an opportunity to make up a little bit of information, pretending that they're a soldier that participated in someone they might have met, what they did when they were on furlough or discharge. So, and then there's a whole section in the back too for more photos and maybe some of the important people, celebrities that showed up for events and things there while they were stationed away. So it's just a great opportunity for some creative writing. Another thing that we like to do is include games. Now, of course, I've mentioned this before, our file folder games. This is a great way with a stack of questions to review the information that you've learned about. In this case, there's usually markers. They might be table tent markers. In this case, this particular game calls for just little hole punched pieces of colored paper. As the kids would answer the questions correctly, they would put a marker on a battle until they finally won that battle. So it takes a few markers for that. Another example of a game, now this would be just a 3D type game, but in more of an authentic craft in a sense. This was taken from the Civil War project or study, and it's basically a piece of canvas or fabric of some sort that has a checkerboard painted on it. And then what they would do is they would take corn cob pieces and they would stain them with coffee or tea and play checkers with that. So this is just another fun way. We've got several different kinds of games. We've got Taxation Frustration is a card game that we offer in the American Revolution, as well as another game, active game called Minuteman, and just different ones, variety throughout the studies. Another thing I want to talk to you about when it comes to the three-dimensional things. Here's an example of the garrison cap. We often like to include projects that would give the kids dress-up clothes or accessories and things too. Another example of that would be the haversack. This was, I believe this one is from American Revolution, but it can be used in Civil War, or actually it can be used like it was Daniel Boone traveling through with our early American history one as well. So it can be used for a variety of things. And again, if I can sew it, almost anybody can sew it. So here's an example of a 3D project. Now this one happens to be again from Civil War. I know I have one for World War II, just could not find it. But these are like little booklets. The box pattern is there to print off. These are booklets on leaders during the time, and they have covers and just a little bit of text on each one. So it just gives you an idea of just some of the other hands-on things the kids would be making that won't necessarily fit in their notebook. Among the authentic crafts, we've got, from previous studies, we've got hole punching, tin punching. Industrial Revolution uses yo-yo quilts and penny rugs. American Revolution also uses, there's one on a floor cloth. Now, it really takes you through making an actual mat of a floor cloth. And if you can make this, you can make them in any size, So here's an example, too, of a quilting block. Now this is what I wanted to mention about with the notebook before. There are 3 different ways to do the quilting block. One is the authentic way, and this was actually a friendship quilt that was voted on in 1850 during a competition at that time. Now you can do the real one, and actually a child would learn how to quilt at that point, or we have the option for in the notebook as well, where a child could just color in the blocks or even cut out little pieces of fabric and glue them in. So it just gives it a little bit more of a variety for the kids that don't necessarily want to do sewing. So finally, we get to our Lapbook. Now this is what a Lapbook is. It is a file folder that's been folded a particular way. It's got projects inside that are glued to the panels or pages. In this case, you can see we've got a little section here on K-rations and just all kinds of aspects. It's going to have, some of them have pop-ups, some of them have wheels, things like that. In this case, we also have the home front pocket, which contains about 10 projects in its own. And this is really cool because a lot of these projects were taken from authentic World War II items that we found, whether it's examples of V-mail, and how to send packages, care packages. It actually talks about sending care packages to soldiers as well. One of the projects here, well, here we go. We talk about some of the different drives that were going on, what people did, Victory Gardens at that time, canning a lot of food because there were so many, things going on like Meatless Mondays and things like that. So we've got a bond book that the kids are going to stick stickers in which was taking place during that time. A ration book. Rationing was very big during that time as well, so there's going to be ration books included in the pocket, and then tokens as well that are going to be slid into this as well. So these are, like I said, based off of real materials that we found and reproduced. Okay, so I hope this has been helpful to help you understand a little bit more about how our studies work. Again, please remember, these are full of projects and you don't need to do them all. Just pick and choose what works best for your family. Now, I'm going to have a link to our website below. I'll also have links to videos that we talk about for our Project Passport and other resources that we have. If you've enjoyed this, please remember to like and subscribe to our channel. We offer videos on homeschool helps and cooking in the kitchen, historical recipes, instructional videos, and just tutorials, other things like that. So thank you so much for joining me. Remember, keep your history hands-on. God bless.